Welcome to the Allison Loves Math podcast. I am super excited to introduce today's guest, Nicole Thompson. So she's been an elementary school teacher for over a decade, and she's been involved in action research projects in math while in the kindergarten classroom. And she's spoken at international conferences. She's currently teaching academic upgrading at the college level, which is really cool because that's helping students to upgrade, their study and life and math skills to sort of set them up for success in college and in the workforce. She's starting her own business called the Fullfilled Classroom to help bring gratitude and joy into classrooms. And she's writing her first children's book on gratitude during the pandemic. It is in the final stages of publishing, so I'm excited to see that as well. And if you are interested, in the show notes below, I will leave a link to her free ebook called Implementing Gratitude in the Classroom. So, my goodness, Nicole, you have been so busy. So busy. You have so many fun things going on. Well, welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here today. It's my first time doing a podcast, so I really am excited.
Well, it's going to be lots of fun. And I think especially for a math podcast, talking about this topic of gratitude and gratitude in the classroom is very unique. It's not something that I see, coming up in math conferences and stuff too much. So I'm really excited. I think it's going to be something, that can help students and teachers so much right now when we're at this, place of being a year into the pandemic. So actually, before we, I want to ask you about the Fulfilled Classroom and get, tips and the benefits of gratitude, but I know you have a math background also. So, before we jump into all the gratitude stuff, will you share a little bit about your math background and experiences?
Sure. I got a lot of training in math when I was actually in the kindergarten classroom, and that's where I spent the majority of my elementary years. And so I got to participate in action research with the Math for Young Children team. And you can Google Math for Young Children. It's a pretty big research project happening in Ontario here in Toronto and up in the Northern Ontario where I'm from. And so they would come up and do these research projects where an action research means that you're doing research like on the job. And so teachers like myself were bringing researchers into the classroom with lesson ideas, and we would actually implement them while we observed, took data away. They would write articles about it. We would get together. It was almost like a mastermind group or a PLC, when we would all dive together and make these lessons even better. And then the researchers were kind of working behind the scenes to figure out, consistencies between how kids were learning and difficulties that they were seeing. And so they took care of the research part of it, and the teachers got to do the implementation. So it's a really neat idea to have those two come together. And so that's what I spoke at the international conferences about, that is how a teacher can actually be, teacher researcher, they called us, because we were looking through a different lens at our students. And while we were teaching, it wasn't just giving a lesson and then, testing them at the end to see if they got it. We were actually watching the process and seeing how the kids questioned what we did and their train of thought and, what struggles they had. So it was a really, really neat experience. And it actually changed my trajectory of my career. Some of these researchers would tell me, you really need to get your master's and come into research. And I'm, no, I'm too busy, right? I'm in the kindergarten classroom and I'm fine here. Well, lo and behold, here we are a few years later, and I do have my master's and I'm wanting to do more research type things, but geared now toward gratitude, instead of the math. But I did, once I had to leave the classroom, I'll get into that in a bit, but I did have to leave the classroom because we relocated, and I started teaching at the college. I got to teach math, instructional methods in math, to education assistant students. And that opened my eye to a whole world of like math anxiety and all of these educators who struggled with even hearing the word math. They didn't want anything to do with it. And then they were so scared that they had to go and help students and teach students something that they were terrified about, right? So that, like, I never experienced math anxiety as a student. And then teaching kindergarten, we made it a lot of fun, right? So yeah. I didn't really witness it a lot either, right? But teaching these education assistants was something eye-opening. And so that we had a lot of conversations about why math is painted with this brush. Like, math is so many things, right, in our world. Like we couldn't live without math, and yet it gets this, it's labeled like one word, math, and it's hard. I don't like math. And so we need to really change that mindset in our educators and our students, right? And so I feel like what I'm doing here, even though my focus is on gratitude in the classroom in general, when I met you and your focus is on math, I'm thinking, okay, there's some really great overlaps here, because we can bring that gratitude piece and make math, a pleasant experience instead of something we dread here.
Yes, and that was partly what I was thinking about when we were starting to talk about gratitude, and is because of the students with math anxiety. There are students who they start having like almost panic attacks just when they sit down in math class, right? Or they think about doing their math homework or taking a math test, and so I think because it's so prevalent and it's so severe with so many students, that I think it requires us to look at some of these out of the box suggestions and ideas that we would normally never consider. So I know we met in the Miracle Morning for Teachers group. So and actually to give a little bit of a background on that, because it really relates to both math and the gratitude, I think. So the Miracle Morning is sort of it's like a morning routine with 6 steps, right? It's called Savers, and it's got, silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Cool. And so basically it's this morning routine, and it's not specifically it didn't start off specifically for the classroom, but it's this morning routine that's sort of, supposed to set you up to be your best self during the day, right? And they wrote a version of the book called The Miracle Morning for Teachers, which is to help teachers sort of integrate this Miracle Morning routine into the classroom, right? And so, for lots of classrooms, I think especially maybe like elementary school and stuff, it definitely makes sense, right? Because we're thinking so much about these, social and emotional skills, for young students who are developing, but it's not necessarily something that teachers think about as often, I think, in math classes, or especially, maybe at the older math classes. And so I took part of this, teacher challenge, I guess, that was part of the book. And I introduced it to my pre-algebra class, pre-algebra is a class of students who get into college and they didn't even place into high school algebra 1, the equivalent of that. So they've got a whole bunch of remedial math to take in. It's a lot of math anxiety. And I found it just really interesting integrating these different topics, like meditation and affirmations and stuff that I didn't know anything about before reading this book. And some of them were really, really helpful. And so I'm super curious to talk with you today about gratitude, which relates to all of those things, to see, how we might, how a math teacher with lots of students with math anxiety, might, I guess, use gratitude ourselves, right, to help us find fulfillment in teaching, but then also to use it in the classroom to help our students. Sorry, that was a long rant. I told you.
No.
I rant.
I do too.
I start off talking and I think it'll be like 2 sentences, and then I'm looking at my watch like 5 minutes later. So
well, anyways, I'll piggyback on that if you want.
Sure, yeah.
With incorporating gratitude into math class, because there's a lot of research right now on gratitude. And this is sort of what I feel like changed my life, because I started focusing on things and changed my mindset, right? And it was all based on gratitude. And I kept a gratitude journal. And when I started feeling really tired of, kindergarten and wanting something different and change, and I wasn't getting it, rather than being, really frustrated about it and going to work every day, not enjoying it, I was forcing myself to bring little pieces of what I loved into the classroom and, make sure that I was having those happy moments with the kids. And I was teaching them how to, write in a gratitude journal or make happiness boards. And so I was doing all of that to make me feel better, but also it was just a domino effect, right? The kids loved it, and it created a more cohesive classroom. And really the benefits of gratitude out there, there's so many studies and a lot of research being done, but it's like our mind, body, and soul, right? These benefits, and it makes us happier. We get more optimism, patience, We even have better problem solving skills, like hello math, right? Like patience, optimism, and problem solving. It makes us more resilient, self-satisfied, and it lowers depression and stress. So all of these things are just like screaming, okay, math anxiety, right? Like we need this to help with all of these issues. It increases communication, relationships, empathy, all of that. So if we can do something in our classroom that's going to make our students feel less stress or calmer or have better decision-making and problem-solving skills in general, that's obviously going to help us out in math as well. It doesn't have to necessarily be math related, what we're doing, but it's going to help. It's going to overflow into math class.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I can definitely see that. So I feel like I sort of accidentally fell into doing sort of an evening gratitude with my kids. When we're saying goodnight to them every night, one of them had started asking about like, oh, what was your favorite part of the day or the best part of the day? And then that sort of became like a nightly question, but then it sort of morphed into like, what did you appreciate the most, or what are you the most thankful for today? And honestly, like I love ending the day on that question for each of the kids because, there's ups and downs throughout the day and some days are better than others, but it just ending the day on something that you're thankful for just reminds you of the good in everything. And it always ends the day on something positive. And so I've been thinking about that too, in terms of, students with math anxiety sitting in a math class, if they just did something with gratitude, what are you thankful about, for school or, in your journey in math, right? It can just sort of help to sort of flip their thinking a little bit instead of focusing on all of the negatives and the fear, focus on maybe some of the progress or some of the support that they have, some of the wins that they've had along the way.
Yes. And some of the prompts I thought you could even have in the math class. Like I've got a 30-day gratitude prompt challenge, not necessarily a challenge, but 30 days of gratitude prompts. And I know you signed up for that.
I've signed up for it and I'm like partway through and it is so much fun. So yes, we can do a quick little plug for that. Nicole has a 30-day gratitude. Is it a challenge? Is it called a 30-day gratitude challenge? Or I forget the official title.
You could totally make it a challenge. I just said it was 30 days of gratitude prompts.
There we go. Yeah.
And
it's super fun. It's just you get a quick email every single day with a new gratitude prompt. So if you're somebody who's new to gratitude like me, and has never gone beyond like, oh, what am I thankful for? Or what am I grateful for? It is really fun because it's just a quick question and I think you can do what you want with it, really. You could actually write out the question every day if you like the writing of it. And for me, it's just helpful. I haven't been writing it out, but I see the email and I look at it and I just think about, the answer for a few minutes and it is, it's wonderful. So I definitely recommend checking that out.
And that's why I chose to send it every day for 30 days instead of a list. And then on the last day, you do get the list of prompts. So you can use it in the future in your classroom. But I gave it every day because if you're like me, you say, okay, I'm going to do something. And then you do it for 1 or 2 days and you forget about it because you get busy. So when that prompt comes into your inbox every day, it's going to prompt you to write it on your board or start your day with that prompt. And so that's why I chose to do it that way, just for some accountability for us. But some prompts specifically to math, I thought of a few just for this podcast, like just asking your students to write down a time when math helped you or made something easier in your life, right? When did knowing math make something easier?
Yeah.
Or talk about a time when you were proud of yourself for overcoming a really challenging math challenge or problem, right?
Yeah, fun too.
Your favorite thing that we've done in math, or list 3 fun activities that we did in math class. So just kind of turn the magnifying glass from, math is hard to let's look at math from a different angle. Like it is challenging, but challenging is good. Our brain needs to be challenged in order to learn, to grow, to be a better person. So we need that challenge. And so we have to make our kids realize that challenges are a good thing, but it's how we react to challenges and how we persevere with those challenges and what we learn from them. So if we could shine the light on that side of things, then maybe our kids would open up to these challenging problems a little more, right?
Yes, I like that because then it just it's a guide, right, to helping them switch their mindset from, oh no, it's hard and that's terrible and that means I'm stupid, to, oh, it's hard and that's a good thing and that's why I'm here, right, to learn how to do these difficult things, learn how to do tough things.
I used to tell my kindergarten kids when they would make a mistake. I said, wow, your brain just grew, because when we make mistakes, our brain grows more than when we don't. So,
Right,
and
right,
that's been proven, right? So that's what we would always say, your brain just grew, and made making mistakes a good thing.
right, right. You'll get a kick out of this. I think they talk about that a lot in my son's kindergarten class. And so he was really excited about that. And so he started on purpose doing things wrong. And he'd be like, look, mommy, I did this wrong. And so that means my brain grew. I was like, oh, that's not quite, but it's sort of fun that you know it well enough to do it wrong on purpose, I guess. It's funny the way 5-year-olds interpret things sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. So let's do some more gratitude prompts. We've got some awesome ones for math. Are there certain ones that maybe you found that are, or more that are helpful, right? Because I really like the ones that sort of focus on like the growth mindset, right? And challenges.
Yes. And you know what? I've got a lot of feedback from the teachers saying that they really have found that the kids are just opening up to the prompts in general, right? They said if they started at the beginning writing me maybe a couple sentences, and now they're writing paragraphs. They're asking me for more time to write. They're writing like mad, just like, and so they said, we're learning so much about our students, and they're kind of doing a back and forth journal with their students. They're handing them in, then they write things back to them. And they said it's just been a really good experience, and the students are loving it and asking for it. So I think it's important to kind of switch it up. So sometimes it can be a really simple, what do you love about your friend? Or why does your dog make you, or your pet make you smile if you have a pet? And if you don't have a pet, something that you own, what's an object that you have that you just couldn't live without, or, you make them fun. And then other ones, things that make them appreciate family, maybe like talk about a family member that maybe lives far away that you would love to write a letter to, or you would love to reach out and, tell them you miss them. And why does your friend cheer you up? How do they cheer you up when you're feeling down? So just really mixing it up and using a lot of variety, which is what I try to do in my prompts, is a lot of variety. Some are really simple. They could be done from kindergarten up to grade, 12 or adults. And a lot of teachers are saying, I'm doing it too, because really, like, as an adult, I can tell you why my friend makes me feel good, just like a 4-year-old in kindergarten can tell you why their friend makes you feel good. So we'll have different answers, of course, but the prompt is the same.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's great. It was so much fun. Let's see. I'm totally lost my question just now. I had a really good one a second ago. Oh man. Okay. I know I will come back and think about it, or in like just a second, but in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about the Fulfilled Classroom.
Okay.
Right? I guess we know what inspired that, right? All of this, the work that you're doing in gratitude, but tell us a little bit about what it is and what it is that you're creating there.
Okay. So basically this whole journey for me started when I had to leave the classroom because my husband got offered a job. He's also a teacher. He got offered a job as a coordinator, and now he's a principal outside of our town. So, in the near city. So we had to leave, and, my colleagues couldn't believe it because I was giving up. I think I had 12 years in or something, right? So it was a big,
hard,
everything, my pension, my benefits, that salary. So I took the plunge because, again, I was at the very end of that. I was kind of feeling tired of the same thing. I had asked for the last couple of years for a change, and I wasn't getting it because they kept saying, no, you're really good in kindergarten. We need you there. Well, but I'm not going to continue to be good if I'm not feeling the love, right? Like I needed to change. So that's why I started bringing all my personal development and diving into that. Like, okay, what else can I be doing here? I need to feel better. I need to create more joy in my life. And so I was kind of diving into that, bringing that into the classroom, which helped a lot. And then we got this opportunity to take. And so we jumped at the chance, and we never really looked back, and so away we went to the city, and I was all of a sudden unemployed. And I had some time on my hands, but I thought, okay, if we're going to the city, I'm going to start focusing at the college level. And I had just decided to take my master's before we moved. Actually, we had made that decision, my husband and I both, to take our master's that year online. Yeah. So it was a really busy year, relocating, full-time master's student, job hunting, starting a job, and I started working at the college, and And I do believe that everything kind of lined up because of my mindset. I was always writing down why I was grateful. Like, even though I was jobless, I was thankful for the time I had to go in for tea with my grandparents. And, you know, I could go shopping with my mom in the middle of the day, which I'd never been able to do before. And all of those things. Then when I got the office job at the college, I was grateful for why, you know, even though that wasn't the job I wanted, it was in the place I wanted to be. And, you know, and so I had all of these reasons and I would create these goals for myself. And so my mindset 100% got me through like that really rough year. And then the pandemic hit. My husband was out of town again, you know, he relocated again. So I was a single parent while I was finishing my work and all this stuff, right? And so there was a lot of things happening in my life, but through it, I was able to really focus on what was really good in my life. And then I had an aha moment, like, if I would have known this 10 years ago, what would my teaching career have looked like? Like, I would have embraced things so much more. I would have done more with my student. You know what I mean? I kind of had that, the feeling like teachers just are so busy worrying about their students or their kids at home or their spouse, whatever it might be, right? Usually they're involved in activities, volunteering. There's so many things, not to mention the job itself, right? So teachers often put themselves last. And I think we really need to change that. And teachers have to be focusing on themselves and self-care and their own mindset, right? And going after things that they want. Like even that year when COVID hit, and I wrote down, okay, I'm going to get my full-time professor job. I'm going to write a book. I even ran a half marathon and I hated running. Like, I did so many things just because I had some goals I set for myself, and I wanted to grow. And so I had one of the best years during COVID, actually. And I started the Fulfilled Classroom just to bring some of this personal development to teachers. And then it sort of stemmed, like, it all started with gratitude, but I didn't know if that was enough to build a whole, my business on that. But it really is, because every time I put anything out about gratitude, teachers are loving it. Like, I had 800 teachers in one day, 750 or 800 teachers sign up for my gratitude prompts in one day. I just put a post out on Facebook and there was tons of people wanting it, right? And so every time I put anything out about anyone interested in gratitude, all the hands are up. And so I thought, okay, maybe I do just need to focus on the gratitude piece, because of all the benefits of this. And there's a need right now with what everyone's going through with this pandemic. And, we've lost so much, but at the same time, I think a lot of perspectives are changing and people are changing their values, what it is that we appreciate in life. And so this is sort of a good time as well to really focus on the good.
Yes. Well, I definitely agree with that, right? I mean, because as soon as I saw, that you had the Fulfilled Classroom, I was like, ooh, I want to learn more about that. And I might want to have you on the podcast because it is so interesting. And I think you're right too. It's been a really tough year for teachers and for students. And so, teachers are looking for, for something new, right? To try something different, especially when you're exhausted as a teacher and when the kids are, exhausted or down in class, I can totally see how you would have 800 teachers sign up in one day for the gratitude prompts, because that was my reaction, was like, oh, this is what I need. I can see this is what students need. And this is what other teachers need,
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I don't want to belittle like the negative side of things either, because teachers are facing more demands, more expectations, scary times, right? Like health, we've never been so worried for our health at school before. So I don't want to belittle any of that, because it is our hardest year ever. Yeah. And, but I also know that what we focus on, we will grow, like things will grow. If we focus on the negative, we're going to get more of that into our lives. And so acknowledging it is a good thing, right? We all acknowledge that this has been the most challenging year of our careers, mostly. But what can we do about it? Because we're stuck in this pandemic, whether we like it or not. You have to wear, your goggles, your visor, your mask, all day, right? Whether you like it or not. So rather than complaining about all of that, because that's not going to change, what can we focus on just to make us feel better, to make our students feel better, to get through it? Because we do know it'll end, which is a silver lining. It is going to end. So, but yeah, the idea of that toxic positivity came out online, and I was almost afraid to even put any of this out there, because I didn't want teachers feeling like, well, who does she think she is, right? Putting all this positivity out there when we're going through all of this negativity. And but I thought, no, teachers, there are a lot of teachers out there that need to hear this. They're looking to focus on something good in this hard time.
Right. Yeah. Well, I remember we talked about that a bit last week, right? About the whole issue with toxic positivity. And it's tricky, right? Because I could definitely see, somebody maybe starting to listen to this, right? And saying like, oh God, I could never have time for that. That's the last thing I want to do. It's like putting something else on my plate. And it's just the idea of it is stressful. But at the same time, if there's another teacher, right, who's just like, oh, this is exactly what I'm looking for, right? This is maybe the solution that I want. It still makes it worth it to share the idea, right? Because it's like when you have these helpful ideas, you still need to share them for the person that it could help, right? And so I'm glad that you decided to put the idea out there and to stick with it, because I was one of those people who just reacted in such a positive way to it. I was like, all right, that's my thing. I can totally see doing a month challenge in my math class, on gratitude. And I can already imagine some of my students like looking at me like I'm insane on the very first day, being like, what? We're in math and we're doing what? But at the same time, I get a kick out of that. Because I know when they look like that, I know that like I'm challenging them, and they'll have a different reaction in a couple of weeks, whether or not it's something that's helpful for them or not. They'll at least recognize that it was helpful for some of their classmates and be able to appreciate the fact that they experimented with something new, even if it wasn't exactly right for them.
Exactly. And you know what, it helps the brain, and that's what they need their brain for their math, right? So I think I can help their brain.
So actually, let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how would you set something like this up in your classroom? Say you're a math teacher who's, never done the Miracle Morning for Teachers stuff, never even done gratitude stuff before. It's just very out of your comfort zone, right? I could imagine a huge block to actually starting it is feeling too weird about introducing it to a math class. How would you recommend, how would you envision like day one goes of introducing gratitude?
Well, I do actually have this in the ebook that you were going to put in the show there.
Perfect.
Yeah. So there's some background information for the teachers, so they know a little bit that they can talk on it with their students. But I would just talk about the benefits, and again, the lots of benefits listed, and I already listed some here, and that because math could be something fearful for students, or create some anxiety in students, that there's some other ways we can combat that, and it doesn't have to be math focused to combat anxiety, right? We just need to have tools in our toolbox to help combat anxiety and stress and depression, all of those things. And so this is just something that has a lot of research behind it to support the fact that this helps our mindset, our brain. It actually, we get new neurons firing and new neural pathways, being set in our brains from doing this. And so it is actually science. And if we can explain it that way to students, and so that they're more open-minded as to why this might relate to math and why we're doing it in class. So just a few minutes, depending on your age group, a few minutes of background, list some of the benefits. You might even have them try to do a bit of research on what is gratitude if they haven't heard much about it, or have that conversation about who's tried it, journaling, or who's been hearing a lot about it. And then I would just say, we've got this little challenge we're involved in. I'm going to get a prompt every day from this teacher that sends out a prompt. And we've been challenged to write a journal entry. And I say it's in the email that you receive, like it says, it's very much up to your students. Like, keep it private if they want it private. Like, if this is a really private thing to journal and to gratitude. Like, even my gratitude journal, like, I leave it around, but I feel sometimes silly when my kids start looking through my gratitude journal. That's my personal thoughts. I don't necessarily want everyone reading my ideas and thoughts, but at the same time, it's all positive things. So I don't really know why that would bother me, but I'm a very private person that way, I guess. And so your students might be really private and they might not want to share. Some would be really happy to share. And so make that their option, whether they want to share or not, and so that they feel like it's a safe place that they can. Because if they don't feel safe doing it, then it's not going to work anyway, right? They're not going to enjoy it. They're not going to get anything out of it. So just letting them know that this is their time to put out their feelings and just connecting at that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I really like that. And I think in terms of prep, right, it's helpful for as a teacher to think of it in terms of like, all right, it's a 2-minute introduction or a 5-minute introduction on that first class, right? So really you're preparing, this quick little bit, on what it is we're doing and why we're doing it, right? And some of the research behind it. And I know I found one thing that I felt like was really helpful when I did the Miracle Morning challenge in my classroom was just setting it up as an experiment, right? Of basically saying, you know what, we're going to try these 6 things and they might not work for you personally, right? But it's 6 different things, right? And if one of them works for you, then that's cool, right? You found something that's helpful, but then keep in mind that if there's things like, I know meditation was one, and that was the one that I was the most nervous about because I never, before the Miracle Morning, I was super like, I thought meditation was like weird stuff. I didn't know anything about it, totally judged it before I knew anything about it, and so I was already sort of imagining, students having that sort of reaction that I had, beforehand. But I think when you frame it around, if it helps somebody in class, it's worth it for us all to try it, right? And we know that some students, especially in this particular class, there were so many students with severe math anxiety, that it's just like, we're just going to try it. And if, the meditation helps like 3 of you guys, then it was worth it for all of us to try it out, and sure enough, in that particular one, because there were so many different things we were trying, it was interesting to see what helped, certain students and stuff. But I think, framing it as an experiment also can help them to sort of keep an open mind too, because then they some of those maybe more negative students might not get fixated on, well, this isn't helpful for me, I think it's stupid. They can kind of think, you know what, it might be helping somebody else here. So let's, keep an open mind about it.
For sure. Good point.
Let's see. I'm trying to think, did we get everything?
I think so.
I think we did, huh? Yes, we actually, we got through all the main things. I'm so excited. All right, so I guess before we go, can you just tell people again where they can find out about you, where they can get the gratitude prompts and all of the things?
For sure. So I have a website, thefulfilledclassroom.com, and they can also find me on Facebook, the Fulfilled Classroom page. And then we do have a group, Fulfilled Teachers. I would love for more inspiring teachers to join our community. So
Perfect. Awesome. And then you can also find Nicole and I over at the Miracle Morning for Teachers Facebook group also. Yes. So you can also search that. And if you're interested in learning more about the Miracle Morning for Teachers and doing that in your classroom, also that's, something that's sort of along the same line, which is why we're both active in that group as well.
Yes.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for being here, Nicole. This was really fun. I'm super excited that we got a chance to talk about gratitude in the math classroom. Very cool.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been good.
Cool. And if you're listening, thank you so much for listening today. I will see you in the next interview. Bye.